Hello, hello. What's up, everybody? Good evening. Good evening. Oh my goodness. Y'all hate me. Hello, everybody. John the Morgile here, checking in. Oh, goodness. I guess I better mute myself. Okay, so looks like the audio is coming in pretty good. So yes, I've got a couple guests that are going to be joining me, but one of them is running a bit late, and the other is having issues getting into Hangouts on Air from their smartphone. So I'm looking through the live chat to see if there's any suggestions or hot tips, because I've never done much hanging out on air from my phone. So it's not a whole lot of help that I can give Matt. But okay, so realize this says download the Hangouts app from Google Play. He's done that. Sign into Hangout. Yep, he's done that. D-Max says, I know there's a way people used to hop into my streams from their Androids. Hangouts is vague when joining. I would suggest them double check if they're joining the right conversation. So, yeah, it does seem to be a bit vague for sure. Realize this says tap the plus button in the upper right-hand corner of the app. Well, my plus button is on the lower right-hand corner of the app, so I don't know. Or swipe from left to right to bring out the new Hangout screen. So you have to do new Hangout to join an existing Hangout? DMAX says old chats or groups stay up. Sometimes they join a previous one that had the same people in it by mistake. Huh. Okay, reading through. Thank you guys for the support, by the way, because I'm like literally, I have nothing to offer when it comes to support on Google Hangouts Android app. So if you swipe the screen from left to right, invites. Oh, let me text this dude and tell him to listen. Well, that's right. He's using a phone, so he can't listen to it and like try to log into it at the same time. So hopefully he's able to get in. If not, then Dave Sims is going to join the call, hopefully within the next few minutes. And he's actually the one that sent me a link to the video that we're going to review tonight. And you guys have probably seen it, or at least bits and pieces of it over the flat Earth years, because it's a NASA video from the LISS. And I guess, and I haven't really gotten the entire scoop on it, but the text that I gotten from Dave basically was saying that he felt like this video may actually be video from orbit, from low Earth orbit, from space. And I've seen bits and pieces of the thing over the years, and I watched the video from start to finish yesterday evening, and there's a lot wrong with it. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter if these videos from NASA, videos from the LISS, it doesn't matter if they are 100% believable, if they didn't get anything wrong, if they didn't make any mistakes ever. To me, that proves nothing, because, well, for starters, we know that the Earth isn't a spinning ball, and so they cannot be up there orbiting. And so, they're faking it. Now, here's the thing. NASA's budget averages out to $52 million a day. We all know that. And if you think about this, let's take Lord of the Rings trilogy, for example. That was a 3-part movie. And at the time, it was the most expensive production ever in history. That's $300 million for that trilogy. Still one of my favorite sets of movies of all time. But think about it, in every 6 days, so like in a week, every single week, NASA has the budget to produce a Lord of the Rings trilogy, right? And so as far as visual effects and special effects goes and all that, It's really no surprise if they're able to fake something like that. So it sounds like we got someone that joined us, or am I hearing things? There we go. Yeah, Dave. What's up,
What
Dave?
up, brother?
Brother.
How's it going, man?
Good, good. So
Is
I'm
is it working?
yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, and let me just make sure that everybody in the chat can hear you. So, people in the chat, if you would like to, please let me know if you can hear Dave okay. That would be great.
Yo, what up, people?
Okay, and looks like Matt is in the chat. He's saying that he's going to try to call in, but that's probably not going to work. Mainly because I might could work, but I've got a prepaid phone, and so I'm down to just a sparse few minutes. And so, Matt, if you're listening, um, maybe you could try to Skype call me, but that's probably not the best way to do it. There were some ideas thrown out in chat, Matt. Everybody's saying, or a couple people are saying, that the Google Hangouts app is a bit vague, which we've learned that pretty quickly, haven't we? So basically, what they're saying is you need to, from what I gather, you need to go through it like you're doing a new call and then join it. But I sent you another invite, brother, and you should see it as long as you're logged into the correct email account. Um, you should be able to see my invite from there. But like honestly, I have no experience with Google Hangouts app. It's absolutely nothing like the Hangouts dealio on PC software. So all I can do is say my best advice would be to maybe see if somebody in the chat can help you that's familiar with it. Electromagnetic frequency says, wasn't it you only used minutes when you call? No, I don't know about other prepaid phones, but my phone, it takes minutes whether I'm calling out or receiving calls. So yeah, that's not going to work. So anybody out there in the chat, if you guys would like to help, Matt, it's Matthew Thurman in the chat here. If you can maybe throw out some suggestions to help him get into the live stream from the app, that would be much appreciated.
Hey, John, are we just audio or is there video on this too?
Right now it's just audio, but what I was gonna do, because you sent me the link yesterday to that NASA video,
Right.
and I watched through it, and what I was just telling the audience was like, first of all, I found several things wrong with it, but even if there wasn't anything wrong with the video, um, I can say very confidently that I know that they're faking it because, well, we know that, or I know that space is fake, it doesn't exist. The Earth isn't a ball, so you can't orbit a ball that doesn't exist. But I found some stuff wrong with it, and actually, I put some notes together yesterday. I guess I should probably open those up. But Dave, if you would like a
I'm sorry.
screen or whatever, you can absolutely do that. That's fine. But if you would like to, because I never got the full skinny from you, if you'd like to just, first of all, introduce yourself, tell everybody, who you are, where you're from, and how you got into flat Earth, and then after that, if you could just kind of give a rundown on, this video and what you felt about it, because in your text, unless I was reading you wrong, it sounded like you were kind of thinking that this video was like real, like it was actual footage from space. Am I right there, or was I
Well,
reading you wrong?
not exactly right, because it was one of those things where, okay, a buddy of mine who is a total heliocentric believer,
Mm-hmm.
he sent me the video, and he's
Uh-huh.
like, and for him, this was like the definitive proof. He's like, here, Dave, see, I told you, So it was a
Mm-hmm.
28-minute video of that astronaut, doing a live feed where there was not really any cuts or anything like that, where they show her floating around in the space station supposedly. And
Mm-hmm.
so I watched the video and I've seen pieces of it before, and like you have. I just saw like little clips here and there. But when I watched it as a whole, I'm like, man, I'm like, you know what? I'm like, if they are faking it, I'm like, that's, they did a pretty damn good job with that video,
Hmm.
but that's why I was curious to see your opinion on it, because I didn't really scrutinize it too much yet. Like, I just sort of like what had it in the background while I was doing something else. But anytime I looked, I'm like, well, kind of looks legit, but who knows? But a little bit about the history and how I got into it. I got into the flat Earth thing about, I think it was June of 2015. And it was basically from that Eric Dubay interview that he did with, what's his name? Greg Carlwood, I believe, from Higher Side Chats.
I think I'm familiar with the video that you're talking about, but I'm not sure what the dude's name is.
Yeah, yeah. He puts on a good show, and it's one of those things where, when I first heard it, I'm like, well, what the heck is this, man? Like, because I've been into conspiracies for a while. Like, I was into like 9/11 Truth. I remember I went to a 9/11 Truth convention in 2006, here in Chicago, and like Alex Jones was there. He was he was like the keynote speaker or whatever at this 9/11 convention. And I remember, I even like during break during that 9/11 convention, I remember I was like, I went to the bathroom and I look over next to me, Alex Jones is like taking a piss right next to me. I'm like, oh, dude, I'm like, that's freaking nuts,
Oh wow.
because that was at the time when I'm like, when I trusted Alex Jones, I was always, going on prisonplanet.com and infowars.com and all that kind of stuff, and really into David Icke and that whole thing back then. But
Sure.
so I guess the transition to the flat Earth stuff in 2015, it wasn't. Well, I mean, it's always a pretty giant leap to go from like we're living on a spinning ball to we're living on a flat plane. So I mean, obviously, it was still a pretty big leap, but it wasn't as traumatic as it would be for someone that just buys into everything that the system, forces down our throat. So when
Sure.
I heard that Eric Dubay interview, I'm like, holy cow! I'm like, dude, this is like, I was just taken aback, and I didn't know what to think at first, and I just kept, watching more videos and looking deeper into it. And then I read the book, Kings Dethroned by Gerard Hickson.
Oh man, that was awesome. That was a
Oh,
really awesome book.
that is a life changer right there. When you read that
Yeah.
book, it's like I became obsessed with Gerard Hickson for a while. I'm just like, man, this guy was a genius, because I mean, he was like a jack of all trades. He did so, I mean, he was an amazing artist. He was, basically an astronomer. He even worked on the Jack the Ripper case for a while. I mean, this guy was doing things where I'm like, oh my gosh, he was like a
S-
genius.
So wait, so was he like contemporaneous with the whole Jack the Ripper thing? He was at that same time frame,
Yeah, it
or
was right around the same time period. Yeah.
huh?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he was doing all this stuff, and then I start reading that that he had all these different papers and these different books that he was working on, and I couldn't come across any of them anywhere. I mean, you could Google search it, and you'll never find these other papers that he wrote. And so I started calling every library all around, and I'm like, I gotta like find out more about this guy. And it ended up, I found like a few of his like lost works. One was called The Universe as It Is. The other one was, I think it was something like The Way the Wind Blows or something like that. Because I mean, he knew things about the weather too. I mean, he just, things that were just way beyond his time, and but he was like a storyteller too. I think The Universe as It Is, it's more of like it's like a fictional story, but it sort of ties in his belief to like flat Earth and things like that, which he was sort of in what's it called, in the what's the main book that he the one I just said,
King's
uh
Dethroned.
yeah, King's Dethroned. He's sort of ambiguous there, where he doesn't really say flat Earth. Like, he never mentions the word flat Earth so much. But in the other papers that I uncovered, I mean, he basically says, yeah, that we're living on a flat stationary plane. And so I found that interesting. But I mean, yeah, the guy is just unbelievable, So I think that's when I really got into it, and that's when I don't even like the name Flat Earth necessarily, because I feel like it doesn't do it justice, because it's so much more intricate than just about the flat stationary Earth. It's more about the entire system. I mean,
And
so
what's the title of that book again?
the other one that he wrote was The Universe as It Is.
Gotcha.
And then there was another one. I have them here. Like, I printed them out. I could actually. I was
Oh
almost
no,
about to
you're
reading.
fine. And I didn't mean to interrupt your train of thought. I was just making sure we were all on the same page as to which work you were talking about. But go ahead with that line that you were on before
Oh,
I
okay, right on.
totally
Yeah.
wrecked your train of thought.
No, no, it's all good. I mean, to be honest, like, I sort of go all over the place. So, like, if you that yeah, anytime you could hone me in, that's better, you know. But
No, no, you're fine, brother, man. Keep it going. You're doing fine.
right on. Yeah, it's only my second hangout ever, so this is pretty cool. But
Nice.
so I was gonna say about King's Dethrone. Oh yeah, I mean, so in my mind, with the term flat Earth, it doesn't really do it justice, because I was thinking it's more about the entire, the entire cosmology. So I was always thinking it should either be called alternative astronomy, alternative cosmology, something along those lines that sort of doesn't trigger people right off the bat. Because I feel a lot of times when people hear the term flat Earth, it's an instant trigger word, where a lot of times it'll just turn people off, and I don't like doing that, because I think it's sort of it doesn't really bring people in a lot of times. But you
Oh, for
know,
sure. No, you're absolutely right. There is so much stigma attached to the term flat Earth that, although I still use it and I'll still title my videos with it, I'm really trying to consciously get away from that and maybe, use a term like fake space, which,
right.
because you're right. Like when you say flat Earth, people are automatically, and it's not by happenstance, we are very precisely trained over the years to reject anyone that's talking about flat Earth, and it's just a lot of stigma attached to it. But go ahead.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah,
and a lot of it too, it's just about exposing the deception, and it's about the system as a whole, and how things could just go so far off track, which I don't think most of the people that teach this stuff, like you talk about all the time too, that it's not like they're intentionally trying to deceive people. It's that they've been deceived themselves for so long, and so they just buy the hype. And the longer you're in that education or indoctrination system, the more you believe it, and the harder it is to convince you otherwise. And I say this as somebody that was totally into astronomy. In my whole life I was into it. I read, Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking, and it was just one of those things where I just always had an interest. So it was sort of mind blowing when I heard this other side of things. I'm like, holy cow! I'm like, and then I thought about it. When you hear things like a light year equates to 6 trillion miles, and they're telling us, the chemical composition of, this planet or this star or whatever. That's
right.
oh, it's only 4 light years away. It's like, oh, you mean 24 trillion miles? It's like, dude, you don't know. There's no way And spectroscopy and all that stuff, it,
Right.
it doesn't. It's not
I've
cutting it.
I've even heard it argued by Globers that we know more about distant stars, specific distant stars, than we know about our own planet. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but I've literally had people. I've seen it mentioned. I've heard people, Globers, talking about it, and this isn't necessarily in the context of flat Earth, but I'm sitting there thinking, so you mean to tell me that we know more about these stars that you say are quadrillions of miles away than we do about our own world, that we can literally dig it up and touch it and measure it and smell it? I mean, come on.
Exactly. Well, I was even going to say, even if you look at something across the room, like if you're sitting in a room and you're staring at an object across the room, you can't make up the chemical composition of that just by staring at it, just by looking at it. It's an observation. You're
Right.
observing something. And it's like, and unless you could test it in a laboratory, sort of like, and that's when people talk about, spectroscopy, where it's like, okay, it works in a setting where you could test it against something. If you're
Yeah.
unable to test it against something, then you don't know. Just because it's it's in the color spectrum, it's red, so we know, okay, it's this distance, or if it's blue, it's this distance. It's like, well, all
Hmm.
that is, like we talk about all the time, it's all presupposition based. So
Yeah, well, and it's funny because we know that our atmosplane, aka atmosphere, but we know that the atmosplane is comprised of specific gases, and at high elevations, you've got the lower density gases, hydrogen, helium. And isn't it kind of funny that those very gases are the gases that they claim make up the stars? Um,
right,
so and
right,
furthermore, when you're up in space, allegedly, when you get up above a certain altitude, at least, apparently you can no longer see the stars. So what
right,
that really tells me, or at least it's evidence to support the claim that the stars are an optical phenomenon that are caused by the upper atmosphere. So whatever the source of the light is, very possibly could be non-visible radiation or non-visible electromagnetic waves that are rendered into the visible spectrum as they pass through the atmosphere. In other words, the atmosphere acts as a diffraction lens to sort of separate the light and render it into the visible spectrum. And somewhere in that process, it makes way more sense to me that that's where you're getting the spectroscopy readings from, not the actual source of the light. So,
right, exactly.
yeah,
It makes total sense what you just said. Yeah,
yeah,
but you tell that to one of the mainstream astronomers, and they would just think you're crazy, because they don't really practice critical thinking. They practice, just repeating what others have told them, and
sure.
so if it works this way, that because they have their whole system that everything is built around. So you knock over one of those little cards, the whole thing falls apart. So they can't they can never say that they are wrong, basically, about anything, for the most part.
Oh no, of course not. And the best thing about it for them is who is ever going to come behind them and falsify it. That
Right,
that's
right,
the thing.
exactly.
That's what separates theoretical astrophysics from science. They're two completely different things. But science with a capital S, by definition, must be demonstrable and must be falsifiable.
Right,
And if there's any confusion about that, like what it means, if something is non-falsifiable, it means you're never going to, for example, travel to even the closest star. According to their distances, it'd be impossible to even travel to the closest star and gather up a sample of it and verify if indeed it is comprised of hydrogen and helium, nitrogen, whatever. So
right.
that lands theoretical astrophysics directly into the bucket of pseudoscience. It is the opposite of science, really.
I mean, they basically, I mean, they're no different than like a science fiction writer in a lot of
Yep.
ways, because they built up a story, and it would be like, whatever, Lord of the Rings, or what's the other, like Harry Potter, how they
Mhm.
invent these languages and these towns and all this stuff where, and so many people, love those stories where they know all the little intricate details of it. And that's exactly what's going on with somebody like Neil deGrasse Tyson, or whoever, Kraus, or whoever, all these
Yeah,
guys.
Lawrence Krauss. Yeah.
Right. I mean, they're so into that system. They bought that science fiction story so much that they're just like that nerdy, Harry Potter kid that's like, oh, I know every little part of what, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I don't know anything about Harry Potter.
He knows
Anybody
about every single brick in Hogwarts.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good analogy for sure. So, but so yeah, it's just the whole system is it's crazy, and I always compared it to like a train that started going in one direction because they thought, okay, we're headed the right way, we're going the right direction, and the whole astronomy Copernican system maybe was built off good intentions. Who knows,
Hmm.
maybe the train was actually, they thought they're going the right way, but the longer they keep going down that path, the more invested they are into that path. So it becomes this whole idea of like, well, we can't go back now. We already went 100 miles. And then all of a sudden, okay, well, we definitely can't go back now. We've already gone 500 miles. All of a sudden you're, so, they're a million miles down the path now where there's no way of them just starting back at the beginning because, their whole premises were everything was built on false premises for the most part.
Yeah.
So but they don't want to go back and look at everything from an objective point of view.
No, absolutely not. And I agree. It really seems that, well, first of all, the ancient Greeks apparently were toying around with the concept of the Earth being a spinning ball. And really, the only sort of physical evidence that would lead towards that are, like the rotation of the stars and, potentially distant objects appearing to, sink bottom first, like a distant ship sinking bottom first. So there are a couple of pieces of circumstantial evidence that, could lead one down that road. So, if the ancient Greeks were toying around with the idea 2,000 years ago, it certainly wasn't widely believed or widely taught, as many globe earthers say. Like, they're like, oh, everyone knew the Earth was a spinning ball 2,000 years ago. But no, I mean,
Right.
like, there may have been some ancient Greeks that were toying around with the idea. But, fast forward to the like late 1400s when Christopher Columbus discovered America with all the millions of people that were already here. Um, at,
Right.
at that point, the oldest known globe was actually constructed in 1492. And so it
Right.
looks like at that point, somewhere around 1500 is when the ball earth indoctrination began in every single classroom. And, I think that widely a lot of people believed it. But you're right. Like at some point, let's just say that it was with NASA or one of these space programs where people realized, oh my goodness, we were wrong all along. Um,
Right.
they had to keep it going. It's like, they didn't want, it would be very difficult for science to admit that they were wrong about this. I mean, the science would lose all its credibility. And
Well,
yeah,
I
go
was
ahead.
going to say too. Yeah, I mean, they would have to revamp the entire system. I mean, so if they admitted, to me, they had a choice. Like right at that moment when they talked about going to the moon, and let's just say they thought the entire system was real at that time. Where okay, we are on a spinning ball, and the moon is 240,000 miles away, and we could land on it, and gravity does exist, and everything else. But I think once they realize that, okay, well, actually, it's not what we thought it was. I
Hmm.
think it. This was my theory a while ago, which I may be totally off on, but I think they had a choice. They could have either sort of broken away from the current system that we have, or they could have just said, okay, well, we're gonna go all in, and we're gonna continue pushing this lie, and we're gonna do everything we can to maintain the status quo, because if we don't, we're going to have to basically revamp everything. So once they decided to do that and say we landed on the moon and everything else, it's like, okay, well, now there's no going back. They've they've basically put themselves in a position where if they admit now that it's not true, then there would be so much a lawsuits. I mean, there would just the entire system would be in total chaos and disarray.
Right. Like,
So
not only would they lose all credibility, but they would also be, like, I don't know, shown to be completely liars. Like, they would lose not only their credibility, but they would lose everyone's trust, in terms of them even being honest. Because I think that's one of the biggest things about science is that it's supposed to be, objective, calculating. There's no sort of emotions, no emotional attachments to theory. And
right.
yet, we see that there clearly is emotional attachment, and there are way bigger motives than just an inconvenience about rewriting all the science books. But we can get into motives. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Oh wait, by the way, I'm coming across the Gerard Hickson papers here right now. Sorry, I'm sort of like looking through things as I'm on the phone with you here. But yeah, wait, the universe as it is. That's one of his works. Um, let's see. Hold on. Oh my gosh, I got it all over the place
No,
here.
no worries. And just looking in on the chat, Intellectual Catch-up says the powers that be already knew that you couldn't go to space. And when NASA tried to go, they killed Kennedy to warn the USA to keep their mouth shut. Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know about Kennedy. Like, there's a lot of people, even in the truth community, that seem to think that Kennedy was on the up and up. But my position on it is, first of all, he made it to president, and so anybody that makes it to president is definitely part of this inner circle. And the fact that Kennedy went and basically shouted from the rooftops that he was planning on getting rid of the Federal Reserve Bank, getting rid of the CIA, the IRS, and dozens of alphabet agencies, he should have known that that would have put a big target on himself. And it seems like the whole Kennedy assassination thing may have been a stage, like not a real event. And maybe I'm way off here. It doesn't seem kosher that somebody like Kennedy, with his connections and his knowledge of the Freemasonry and everything, it doesn't seem like he'd be stupid enough to announce it, that what he was planning on doing. It seems to me that he would be more likely to just do it, right? But I
Right.
don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all. I mean, yeah, we could speculate on all that stuff. I mean, who really knows? It's like, well, yeah, like you said. I mean, if he got to that position to become president, you don't get to that position without the powers that be. Sort of getting you there. So.
Sure. Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
so I mean, yeah, but maybe I mean they're all egomaniacs. But wait, I'm sorry. Hold on one second, John.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So Sam Parmley says Kennedy equals 33. Yeah, I don't know, but the whole thing with the assassination, it very well could have been staged. Like, it could have been a squib, or like a trick of what it's like a squib. It's a little exploding bubble of fake blood. Um, and the Zapruder film, the one that shows in pretty graphic detail what happened, was in the possession of federal agencies for a good while before it was released to the public. So they did have plenty of time to doctor it.
Right.
Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
but who really knows?
Well, that's
So
the
did
thing. I
you?
mean,
Oh, go
there's
ahead.
so much. There's so much stuff that that we're never gonna know because there's so many cover-ups and so many. They intentionally take us off trail so many times with having us go down this rabbit hole, that rabbit hole, where it's so hard to actually know what's the truth. And that's, I mean, the ironic part is the biggest conspiracy of them all, the flat Earth stuff, is the one that's probably the easiest to prove because it's the one that we could actually test as is. We can't go back and test the bullet from the John F. Kennedy assassination or test all those things because it's that evidence was already tampered with. Where the flat Earth stuff is actually things that we could test today and and sort of come to objective results on that sort of thing.
Absolutely, and I think that that's clear, is as clearly as why they go out for the indoctrination campaigns while we're so young, because we
Right.
really do build our character and our paradigm during those younger years. And if they can mold our belief system at that phase in our lives, it is very, very difficult, and apparently to varying degrees depending on the person, but it is very difficult to break yourself free of that programming. But you're absolutely right. Like, of all of the conspiracies throughout history, and yes, history is peppered, very thickly with sort of false flag events and conspiracies. But we can't measure those. We can't verify a lot of those. I mean, other than maybe video, maybe what was written. But in terms of flat Earth, you're absolutely right. It's unique in a sense that we can measure the Earth any old day of the week.
Right.
And so that's why
Right.
they really had to go after us young with this one.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's true. And yeah, it's a lot of the other things, things that I think in a lot of ways to get people to even want to take a listen to anything we have to say. First, you have to start with like little things like fluoride in the water, and show them like, okay, how there's so much proof that fluoride is there's so many negative side effects to this, and why are they pumping this in our water, and why would they care so much about our teeth? Like, who
Mhm.
gives a shit? It's like we got so many other problems, and the government supposedly cares this much about our teeth. It's like, come on. And then you start going into like aspartame and things like that with putting in our food, and Donald Rumsfeld being the CEO or the vice president of the company Searle that ended up putting aspartame in all of basically every single diet soda in every gum nowadays. You
Really, I had no idea that Rummy was involved in that, but I'm not surprised. And
Yeah.
it's funny that you mentioned that because I was in the dollar store the other day and I was looking at some 2 liters. Actually, it was 3 liters for $1. So
Nice.
yeah, that's why I was looking at sodas. But even the non-diet sodas, these really super genero sodas like you find at Dollar Tree, I was looking at the ingredients, and yeah, it's got water, carbonated water, high fructose corn syrup, and then a bunch of other garbage that you really shouldn't put into your body. But lo and behold, the non-diet sodas, every single one of them, all the flavors that they had aspartame in them,
Yes.
and
Or the
you
diet
know.
ones, right? Yeah, all the
n-
diet ones, or
No,
the
not even the diet ones. The ones that were not diet, the
oh,
regular,
really? Okay.
yeah. And so, but like to your point though, it's much easier to accept or at least to humor flat Earth if you already understand that there are really negative things coming from this power structure. You mentioned fluoride in the water. It was the aluminum manufacturers had a big problem with disposing of their fluoride. It's a byproduct of aluminum manufacturing.
Right.
And so instead of having to spend huge amounts of money to dispose of that according to federal regulations, they just rewrote regulations to where they got, I think it was just a couple of dozen dentists, put a few dozen dentists together that
Yeah.
were, most likely Ivy League skull and bonesmen,
Right.
and they got them to say, yeah, fluoride is, it's good for your teeth and all this, so let's drink it. I mean, I don't get the connection there. And
Right.
you see things like that. You see things like aspartame. You see things like Pearl Harbor, and then even 9/11, and all these other things where there definitely appears to be conspiracies going on throughout history.
Right.
Flat Earth and NASA being a propaganda agency way before they're any sort of a space agency. It's not as difficult to swallow compared to someone who has never heard of any of this stuff. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Right, exactly. Well, I mean, because even with aspartame, I remember because when I read about that initially, like 12 years ago, and I'm like, oh, big surprise. Yeah, Rumsfeld was the vice president of this company, and the company actually isn't far away from where I live. So I remember I was going to take a ride over there, but then I found out that he's no longer the vice president of that company. But I didn't know what I would do anyways. Like, I demand to speak to Donald Rumsfeld, whatever. But but I was but because it got declined twice by the FDA prior to Rumsfeld being in the Reagan administration. So as
Mhm.
soon as Rumsfeld got on board, I forget, I don't know what his he was in the cabinet for Reagan, and so they put him on, and they changed up the head of the FDA, and lo and behold, what do you know? Aspartame gets approved, and next thing you know, it's in every single diet drink. And to this day, people are drinking it like crazy, and
Yeah,
you got
and
all
for
these disorders now, and cancer and whatever else, which it was proven back then. The reason it got declined is because when they had these studies, it was causing all these tumors in rats and mice and all this stuff. And You know, so they knew it was dangerous, but they didn't care because it was all about making money.
Well, and yeah, and I was gonna say also for people that don't know, like, and I've had people ask me when I mention aspartame, not everybody knows, well, like, what's the big deal with aspartame? And I gotta say that it was actually Alex Jones who brought this to my attention first. You know, as much as I hate to say it, there are some points that Alex Jones raised that were good points. I mean, and
Right.
honestly, if it wasn't for Alex Jones, my awakening wouldn't have happened when it did.
Right.
So you know, he did put some good information out there. I suppose he still does, but I don't really watch him much anymore.
Yeah.
But you know, at this point, my opinion of him has changed. Although, okay, so the issue with aspartame is that the big one is that the way that they make it, they take genetically modified E. coli bacteria, and basically, long story short, at the end of the process, the E. coli bacteria excretes aspartame, which is like, you know, NutraSweet. It's like an artificial sweetener. And by the way, Donald Rumsfeld, born July 9th, 1932, retired political figure and businessman. He served as Secretary of Defense from 1975 to 77 under Gerald Ford.
Uh-huh.
Um, yep. And in 1957, during the Dwight D. Eisenhower administration, served as administrative assistant to David S. Dennison Jr., a congressman. And I'm looking for what exactly he was under the Reagan administration, but I thought it was listed there. So let's
It
see.
should be
If
because
I
I know.
find it, I'll call it out.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, because I know that yeah, he was sort of crucial in getting the whole FDA head changed over to get their guy in there, and then soon after that guy approved it is when then he retired right after that. It was like, okay, your job is done. Move on. Here's your $10 million bonus. Whatever they gave him underneath the table, because it's like they knew that they were causing all these issues. But
Of course, and just don't we see that everywhere? Like these politicians will do huge favors for corporations that they are totally connected with. Like they, a lot of times they are like huge shareholders in the corporation, or they actually work for them. They'll put in legislation that wildly benefits these corporations, and then once that's done, they can just get out. I mean, they're set for life, ain't they?
right, yeah, exactly, for sure.
Yeah.
So I know it's nuts, man. Well, that's what even the whole pharmaceutical, like big pharma, the whole pharmaceutical industry. It's like, yeah, that's the other thing. When I started looking into that a long time ago, how a drug is actually approved by the FDA, and then when I found out the the studies that need to be done in order to test your drug, it's not done by men in white lab coats in this high tech laboratory. It's people that invented the drug are the ones doing the tests. And then all the FDA does is they look over the reports. They say, okay, this report looks good, this looks good, or whatever. Okay, approved. And it's like, my gosh, there's no, it just seems like such a flawed system on so many
Uh,
different levels.
Oh, and you know that door swings completely the other way as well. Like, there have been a couple of instances, well, one in particular, where this doctor, and I cannot think of his name at the moment, but this doctor came up with a very effective cure for cancer. And now this isn't Laetrile or B17. This is something different. I can't think of the name of the process, so forgive me. But basically, this doctor was treating patients with a Food and Drug Administration. They had given him the okay to run tests, like to try it, and he was just getting like a super high percentage of positive outcomes. People were getting cured of cancer, and he was actually he served time in federal prison
Oh,
for it.
sounds
They
familiar. Yeah.
shut down his labs. They like destroyed his research, destroyed like, and so the same FDA that is doing that on one hand, like making it impossible for cures to see the light of day,
Right.
or effective treatments, I should say, probably better. but making it impossible for these effective treatments to see the light of day. And then on the other hand, they're just allowing just awful, terrible things, just green lighting them right on through, with no problems, and fast tracking them into, into the onto the shelf. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a travesty, man.
Oh, exactly. Even on, because my mom, the other day I was over by her house and she was watching Dr. Phil, and they had the CEO of Pfizer was on, and I forget what she was pushing because at first you didn't know she was the CEO of Pfizer, and then all of a sudden she's talking about something because this woman was saying, oh, it was something with like an autoimmune disorder, and
Hmm.
so this woman is just saying, oh yeah, go to your healthcare a provider, and you get on the proper drugs that you need and this and that, but never once did she mention food or different supplements that you could take, anything like that, because it's all for them big business with just how much money they make off of all these pharmaceutical drugs. It's just absolutely insane. So, I
Yeah,
mean, it's literally, I mean, it's probably $1 trillion industry. And what I found out too was that, of course, the Rockefellers were behind a lot of that stuff as well with Western medicine, with, I can't think of, because there's holistic and what's the other? Homeopathic
homeopathic.
versus allopathic medicine. And
Hmm.
because allopathic medicine basically is treating the symptoms, and that's what the Rockefeller family got into, way back then in like the early 1900s, I believe. So they're making a lot of money off not just oil, but obviously banking and pharmaceuticals and all that kind of stuff. So it's
Sure.
it's
Well,
crazy.
that's one thing that you can always count on is people are going to get sick. People are going to get ill. And yeah, they make a big business out of just treating the symptoms, not going under and not going after the underlying causes. And that's what all of modern Western medicine is based on. I mean, look at the cancer treatments that we have today. It's radiation and chemotherapy.
Right,
Radiation is known to cause cancer.
right.
Chemotherapy is basically poisoning your body so much that the cancer just dies.
Yeah.
But we've found, I've in my limited research, I'm no doctor, but I've found, on the one hand, B17 approach, which appears to be highly effective. And on the other hand, there's this other doctor, and I cannot for the life of me think of the name or the process. I'll look into it, and I'll even do a video about it at some point. But yeah, this guy was really doing well treating cancer, and if these sorts of cures are allowed out, it's going to just devastate the modern medical industry's bottom line,
Right.
and that can't happen. I mean, it's not about curing people, and maybe with some doctors it is, but they're not actually going after the root cause of the problems. They're just treating symptoms, and with the pills that they give you for the symptoms, look at all the side effects of those. So then
Yeah.
you might need another pill to treat the side effects of the symptoms that you're getting from, it's
Right.
just crazy.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. Even the other day, I went to because I have psoriasis, and
Hmm.
I went to the doctor, about a month ago, and just to see what he said about it, because I tried different things and I can't seem to figure out how to treat it. And the doctor told me, he's like, yeah, he's like, well, we'll put you on this pill, and yeah, your psoriasis will be gone. I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, what is it? He's like, oh, it's a chemotherapy drug,
Oh
but
my goodness.
and I'm like, chemotherapy. I'm like, dude, I just have some like problems on my elbows and knees from just like a little skin issue here, it looks like. So yeah, I don't want
Mhm.
to be on like a chemo drug here. And he's like, well, he's like, then you'll just have psoriasis forever. And I told him, I'm just like, listen, I'm like, man, I was just in I went to Mexico last year, and it's amazing because I was going in the ocean every day and I was out in the sun, and what do you know, the psoriasis was clearing up, and I was there for
Oh
about
yeah.
a week, and I'm like, this is unbelievable. I'm like, because I've had it for like 12 years now, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, this is amazing, and but of course you tell that to the doctor, and it's like, oh well, yeah, it was just they'll make something up. I mean, who knows,
It was a
but it's
coincidence. They'll
right,
say, correlation doesn't equal causation, and like if you ask a doctor about things like that, they sort of have to tell you, no, you need a pill. That was just a coincidence. Like that,
right,
technically they could lose their license if they said, look, if you want to get rid of that psoriasis, just go to the beach every day for a couple of weeks.
right.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean? They would literally
exactly.
lose their license.
Right, yeah, for sure. And and then the more I looked into it too, because that's an autoimmune issue too. So a lot of it has to do with the gut and like restoring, good bacteria and building up the intestinal walls and things like that. Because a lot of times with any autoimmune thing, your body is just on attack mode because things are leaking through your intestine walls to your bloodstream. And so
Hmm.
your body's just on like high alert at all times, and then it manifests itself in different ways, which there's something crazy like 200 different autoimmune disorders now or something like that, which I'm sure has something to do with the food that we're eating, all this
Sure.
processed crap and everything. So
Oh, I'm sure it does. And yeah, like honestly, I've been convinced for quite a while now that most disease anymore has to do with, well, this is going to sound really weird, but parasitic infections of the gut.
yeah,
Um, but that's probably a topic for another discussion altogether. And
right.
we've been in, like, we could go on for hours about that stuff, I'm sure. But we've been
Yeah.
on for almost an hour now, and we haven't even touched the main topic. So let's
Oh, right. Okay.
let's
Okay.
wrap up what we were talking about here, and we'll move on to the main topic.
Yeah, I'd say yeah. Just move on to it. And are you going to show the video as we talk about it, or how are we going to go about doing that?
Yeah, I am. I'm gonna cue that up, and the way I've got to do it is I've got to put it on my main speakers. And
Okay.
then if we want to stop and talk about something, what I'll have to do is like pause the video, switch to my headset. That way we're not feeding back. So if you like at any point though, if you want to stop and like comment or whatever, just say the word and I'll pause it and I'll switch over to my headset real quick.
Okay, right
Um,
on. Yeah, no, that
yeah.
sounds good. Am
All
I going to
right.
see it on the screen here on the Google Hangout screen, or do I have to open up YouTube right now?
No, you should be able to see it from where you're sitting,
Okay.
that without having to do anything. So yeah, let me. The only thing I'm kind of worried about is inadvertently sharing the Hangout URL with the trolls. So I'm gonna do my darndest to slide everything over. Oh, and let me cue this up. And oh, by the way, let me put a link to this video that we're about to share into the chat. So it'll just be there for your reference later
By
on,
the
everybody.
by the way, how many people are watching? Right? Because for after a while, I forget that like we're on live. I just think I'm talking to you. I'm like,
Yeah, that's
oh
the
shit,
best
yeah, that's
way.
a lot of people. Like probably, or even if it's
That
5 people, that's more than I'm used to listening. Well,
No,
aside
right
from
now
maybe.
there's about 115 watching, so it's a
Yeah.
pretty decent stream so far. Yeah. But yeah, no worries. It's better if you just think about it just as me and you talking.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Take
Yeah.
that pressure off.
Okay. So let me go ahead and cue this video up. I put a link into the chat, so if anybody wants to go back and watch it again later without us interrupting it, because we will be interrupting it. Um, let me just preface this because I don't think you were on when I said this the first time, but we got off on a pretty big tangent there.
Yeah, I know. I tend to do that. My bad.
No, that's good though. It was perfect. Um, so the way that I see it is that NASA has the budget to put on a very big budget movie like I said, Lord of the Rings trilogy every week with they could take Sunday off, because that's their budget is 52 million bucks a day. The whole Lord of the Rings trilogy was a $300 million project. So NASA gets that every 6 days with in a week with a day off to spare.
Right.
And so again, I did find issues with it, but even if I didn't, even if it was perfect, in my opinion, it doesn't do it any good because we know. Oh, excuse me. We know that the Earth isn't a spinning ball, and that's demonstrable with all sorts of evidence, and that's a whole nother 1,000 videos. But even if they had it perfect, it doesn't prove anything because at the end of the day, we do know that they're lying. Now, with that being said, I did find personally several things wrong with it. But like I said, even if I didn't, it doesn't matter. So let me switch over to this. I'm going to share my screen. Actually, first, I'm going to switch my audio output.
Okay. Wait,
So
John, you know what? I
be...
got to step away just for a minute here, but let me, you know, whenever you get it going, I'll come back to the phone here in a minute.
Sure. Well, and you've already seen it as well. So no worries on that.
Okay,
But
cool.
okay. All right, so
I'll
guys,
let you know
bear
when I'm
with
back.
me.
Thanks.
Okay, no problem. So bear with me, and what I'm going to do is change my settings so that my video output, I'm sorry, audio output will be my Realtek. And
Hey, John, actually, real quick, I'm sorry to interrupt again, but
uh-huh,
if I hang up right now, could I just hit the same link to just join it again?
you can.
Okay, and it won't interrupt anything if I do it that way.
No, you'll be fine.
Okay, right on. Yeah, give me like 5 minutes, and I'll join you in here in a little bit.
Sure, no problem.
All right, thanks, man.
Okay, bud. All right, so let me switch this over. Realtek high definition audio device. Save that, and then um, I'm not sure what is going on here. Oh, I guess I wouldn't be hearing myself anyway. So, okay, all right, I'm gonna play this video, guys, and if you peoples in the chat can let me know, first off, if you can hear it. Oh no, okay, that didn't work. Hang on. Playback devices, oh, I might want to turn this on. Okay, and let's go back over here, change my settings. Sorry guys, trying to switch it over. It shouldn't be this bad next time I have to do it, but bear with me, please. Set this as default device, apply, okay.
I'm up here on the
There we go.
International Space
Okay,
Station.
so let me know first, guys, if you can hear this fairly well.
This is a really cool module.
Okay, that should be enough of a sample. If you can just please in the chat, let me know if that came through okay. So I'll wait for you guys to give me the green light on that. So Tinfoil Hatter says, yes, will do. Quebec Flat says, yep. DMAX says, I've known some really good peoples with opioid addictions. Oh, well, okay. Top Hill says, I hear it, heard it. Okay, good. All right, so what I'm going to do is I will share my screen. Save this. And let me make sure that this is here. Yep. Playback device. Okay, and so now whoops, don't want to do that. Oh, you silly thing. Now I'm gonna share my screen. Sharing my screen. Okay. So hopefully you guys can now see my screen, and I'm gonna just wait for visual confirmation on my end. Got it. Okay. So here we go with the NASA video. And again, you guys have probably seen this, or at least bits and pieces of it, but we're gonna go through it and just pick them apart. So here we go.
Hello, I'm Sunny Williams. I'm up here on the International Space Station. So this is Node 2. This is a really cool module. Of course, most of these modules you'll see they have 4 sides, and they're put together. That way we could sort of work on a flat plane.
Work on a flat plane. Isn't that funny? Now, one thing that I want you guys to pay attention to throughout this whole thing is this woman's necklace, because I believe that this necklace could be totally CGI'd. Like, she's not wearing a necklace at all, but it's CGI'd in there. And you might be asking, well, why would they do something like that? That doesn't make a lot of sense. But in my opinion, it's an effect to really hammer home their credibility, or their perceived credibility, I should say. Because, you know, with this necklace that dangles around and flies in all different directions, it's another one of these tricks that they like to pull. Like, you know, they love to do their somersaults whenever they're live on screen on the LISS. But it's a trick that really hammers home the effect of them being weightless and in space. So, but do pay attention to this, because there's a couple of things that I've found extremely telling about this. Now, the first thing is going to be the sound effects. You'll notice like some clinging and clanging around sometimes, okay? And to me, it's very obvious that this is somebody adding in sound effects. Like, if you ever know about classic, you know, videography, if you will, sound effects are something that they used to, and they still do. Now it's more digital, but at least they used to, and I guess they still probably do. But they used to have like people that all they did for the movie was record different sounds that would be later inserted into the movie. And so, like, for example, whenever you see thunder in these old movies, they would literally have like a big sheet of thick aluminum that they would, it would like be hanging from some kind of a platform or whatever, some kind of a structure. And they would literally just like bang this aluminum with a hammer and like shake it around to give this effect of sound effect of thunder. And so with her necklace, to me, it's so obvious that this is a sound effect added later. Like, and the reason being is sometimes when it's like when the necklace is playing a character in this video, the sound effects happen like very consistently. Now, there's other times when, yes, the necklace is still there, but it's not really playing a character in that scene. It won't make any sounds at all, but it's still like floating around and hitting her in the face. And that's another thing. That's the second thing, is this woman does not react even one single time to this necklace, like hitting her in the face and like really coming close to hitting her in the eye. It's a knee-jerk sort of a reaction that you could not compel yourself to cease. If something's hitting you in the face close to your eye, you're going to flinch. You know, if it starts tickling the side of your face, you're going to bat it away. She doesn't react to this necklace even one single time throughout this whole video. And, you know, I'm sorry, but any normal person would have some type of reaction to this necklace floating around and hitting him in the face. Okay, and that begs a really big question. If you're up in space, are you really going to wear a necklace that flies around and hits you in the face? And really, if you were going to do that, which I'm sorry, it doesn't seem feasible to me, especially when you're in a military sort of environment, right? Which NASA is part of the military. It seems like they would have some type of regulation for, you know, if you're going to wear jewelry, it cannot be loose fitting. And this isn't to be, you know, anything but practical and safe, you know. And that brings up huge concerns, is their safety, but we'll get to that in a bit. But anyway, pay attention to the necklace, pay attention to her, okay, and her non-reaction to the necklace. Because again, the necklace is a character in this little video here, and it's a better actor than she is. Just saying. All right, here we go.
a wall, a floor, another wall, or the ceiling. But, you know, again, all you have to do is turn yourself and your reference changes. The reason I'm bringing that up is because this is where 4 out of 6 of us sleep. And so people always ask about sleeping in space. Do you lie down? Are you in a bed? Not really, because it doesn't matter. You don't really have the sensation of lying down. You just sit in your sleeping bag. So here's one sleep station right here. I'm going in right now. You can follow me if you want.
And hopefully you guys can hear the necklace clanging around, but it's like sometimes when it seems like they should add a sound effect, they do. Other times when it seems like they should add a sound effect, they don't. But when it's like not really, when the necklace isn't real prevalent or obvious in the shot, they just don't play sound effects at all. And hopefully that's coming through on this video. But if it's not, then I did put the link in the chat, and I'll try to remember to put it in the description as well. And just go through and watch it yourself and you'll see what I'm saying. But here we go.
So I'm inside. It's sort of like a little phone booth, but it's pretty comfy. I've got a sleeping bag right here that we sleep in, so we don't have sort of like a little bit of a cover. We don't fly all over the place. But, you know, you can sleep in any orientation. I have it sleeping, feeling like I'm standing up right now, but like you saw, I'm on the floor. But it doesn't matter if I turn over and I sleep upside down. I can't have it. I don't have any sensation in my head that tells me that I'm upside down. So it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, you don't have any sensation in your head that's like a conscience either. Just like one thing I wanted to mention is this hair. Like, come on, lady. And this isn't exactly the best shot, so let's change that a bit. Okay. Yeah, there's probably children watching. But like, do something with this hair, lady. I mean, come on. Picture a military submarine, right? U.S. Navy submarine. Do you think the women on the submarine are going to be walking around the submarine with their hair in disarray? I don't think so. So maybe it's a pain to do your hair, but tie it back in a ponytail. That's ridiculous. I mean, you'd be worried about that getting caught in things. You'd be worried about, I mean, it's poor hygiene. Loose hairs getting stuck into the HVAC systems. You would want to minimize on your filtration systems getting bogged down with with excess hair. So you'd do anything that you could to minimize that sort of thing. They don't seem to be concerned with that, even like one little bit. So, she's got the necklace flying around for effect. She's got the hair flying around for effect. And honestly, I'm not going to go out on a limb and say that her hair is CGI, but it could be done. But for her to have her hair like that, um, in the LISS, oh my goodness! I mean, that is it's silly. It's silly. Um, she should have her hair tied back, and not just because I don't like disheveled hair. It's for practical purposes, for safety reasons. Okay, I mean, come on. But see, they do things like that. It's a trick to sell the idea that they're weightless. Now, for some of these shots, perhaps they could have clipped together the Vomit Comet, the parabolic trajectory airplanes that'll go up and high in altitude, and then they'll cut the engines and they'll do a slow, like a bell curve. And at the peak of this, it simulates weightlessness in the airplane. So they could be filming that way and then cutting those together. One of the things is there does not appear to be many cuts in this. Okay, now, so that tells me either they have just figured out some clever way to edit cuts together without it, being seamless, or it could be a very controlled set with a lot of CGI and harnesses and stuff like that. But anyway, that's just conjecture. Just wanted to mention the hair. I mean, it's just not practical. It's not safe. Neither is the necklace. Like, one of the first things in shop class is like, if you have long sleeves or loose fitting clothes or jewelry, take it off. I mean, come on.
Also, like a little office, we've got a computer in here. As you can see, we've got a couple little toys. I've got some books. I've got some clothes and other things that make it sort of like home. I'm coming out. And just for reference, that's one sleep station. This one's another. Right here. There's one on the ceiling, if you want to call it. Right here. And then there's a fourth on the other wall over here. So all of us sleep in a little bit of a circle. All right, come on back.
Yeah, sure you do. I'm sure you sleep in there.
There's more to show you.
Now, here's another thing to notice about this is as we're flying through the ISS, I couldn't find one single instance where they had a closed hatch. Every single one of these hatches is open. And, this seems like it would be a very big safety concern, because if you were to get any sort of a substantial puncture in the hull of the ISS, then the entire craft would be compromised. They are supposedly in the very high vacuum of space, and so if anything were to happen, if they were to lose pressure in one compartment, if those hatches are all open, they're going to lose pressure in all the compartments. It would be a huge safety concern. And yet, as far as NASA goes on the ISS, they just throw caution to the wind, buddy. They're not concerned with safety whatsoever. Really, I mean, between her hair, that necklace, and the hatches all being open, it's a wonder they haven't fallen out of the sky decades ago.
I know that there's some questions about how to use the bathroom and how do you actually live in space like normal,
Yeah, because that's what we want to know about. We don't want to know exactly what science are you doing up there in space. We want to know about how you're going to the bathroom. Yeah, because NASA is apparently responsible for some 1,600 new inventions every year, according to Charles Bolden, the head of NASA. He claimed that NASA has all these inventions every year, and that may be true. The thing is, if you go and research the patents for these inventions, they're being invented by people on NASA's payroll who are not astronauts. They've never been to space. So these astronauts are up in space, basically floating around with their hair in a frizzy, going to the bathroom, but they're not actually inventing anything up in the ISS. Just saying.
I mentioned real quickly about getting up in the morning and brushing your teeth and washing your face. Well, how do you do that? Well, here is the bathroom, essentially. You get up in the morning, and we have a little kit, and it has all the essential things that you need, like your toothbrush and toothpaste and brush. See how much better the brush makes my hair look?
Yeah, why don't you tie it back and put it in a ponytail holder? I mean, it really is absurd that she would, especially to film this little skit here, to have her hair like that. They're just selling the effect. And yeah, I'm not saying that her hair is CGI. I do believe that the necklace is. And again, if you pay attention, once again, to the necklace throughout this, you'll see what I'm saying. The sound does not match the necklace. Her hair is just a freaking mess. She should have it tied back, especially
Medusa right there, dude. There it is.
yeah, really. All right. So I'm going to continue. Oh, did you have anything you wanted to comment on this for now? And I hope you're not feeding back because I've got the speakers on. Hang on. Let me just make sure that it's not feeding back. No, it's not. Okay, cool.
Right.
But did you have anything you wanted to comment on this before we put it back going?
No, I just got on. So yeah, I'll just sit back and let you do your thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no worries. But if you haven't at any point, if you want to comment or mention anything, whatever, just go right ahead.
Okay.
And I'll pause it.
Right on.
All right. Okay, here we go.
I'm just joking. It still stands up straight. It doesn't matter where you are. It's always going to stand up straight while you're up in space. A lot of people ask about toothbrush and toothpaste. So, luckily enough, toothpaste, could do it upside right this way. It's sticky, and so it sticks to your toothbrush.
Yeah, nice pea-sized drop there. Get a good dose of fluoride in you.
No problem. Another cool thing is that water sticks to your toothbrush too. If you can see it, I'll have some water come out. Water is pretty neat up in space. Stick to your toothbrush, and it will make a big bubble.
Now, here's one thing that I want to mention about this portion. Now, this could be real water in like a vomit comet style, like if they're shooting it inside of one of these parabolic trajectory planes. But my point is that the water could be CGI. Like the technology certainly exists this day and age, or whenever this was shot a few years back. It could be CGI. So like the fact that we see this going on here, and I've actually seen some pretty compelling videos where they show that what's going on in the reflection in the bubble doesn't match what's actually going on in the background. Like the CGI is good, but it's not 100% accurate to what the eye would see. But that's neither here nor there. The point being,
oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
No, I was just going to say the point being is that they certainly could fake it, and you'd never be able to tell the difference. But go ahead.
Yeah. Sort of like in the Big Bang Theory, right? That episode where that show that's on CBS or whatever, where Sheldon or one of the guys was in space, and it looked like he was playing with that pen or something like that, but that was all CGI. I mean, he obviously wasn't in space, but it sure looked like he was, in that episode.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I totally agree that they could 100% fake that, but it's just hard to, I mean, because it looks so real, but at this point now the technology is so good where it probably wouldn't be that difficult to make it look absolutely real.
Right. And one thing that NASA has done a really great job of is they have convinced people that any sort of video from space is going to be very low quality. Like they've really got that point through. So when they do these very expensive and grandiose special effects, it doesn't seem thinkable because remember, NASA has very low quality video and their videos always look like crap. So the thought, it's a very clever sort of subliminal way to get at you to where like it wouldn't cross people's mind that NASA would be spending hundreds of millions of dollars on very cutting edge, perfect video effects. But I would submit that they've got the budget to do it, and they certainly, the technology exists. And so, it's like, I don't know. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Oh yeah,
Like,
sure.
yeah.
It's like, like you said, it's that whole subliminal sort of subconscious thing where, you already know them to do it at a certain level. So anything beyond that level is like, oh, of course this is real, So
Right.
yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah. And so my point would, again, just to reiterate, is that no matter how perfect this video is, like even if you never found any sort of issues with the video, it really doesn't prove anything to me because this sort of thing can be very convincingly faked with modern video technology.
Right.
So
You saw that clip from the show Big Bang, or not Big Bang Theory, or is it Big Bang Theory, where
yeah,
the one dude was in space. You saw that whole thing before, right?
yeah, I actually used that clip in one of my videos a while back.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah, because he's using that. What's the technology where they put the contact lenses in and they're able to see things that aren't there? What do they call that again?
Yeah, it's like a virtual reality, like sort of thing.
Yeah, so yeah, something like that. There's a specific name, but it's but so basically, it looks like they're great. Like the one astronaut that was looking like he was hanging up the hat. Remember that one clip of that one guy? It
Hmm.
looks like he's grabbing something because in his vision, it's looking like the thing was probably in front of him, but he ended up putting it off to the side, but it wasn't really on the augmented reality. That's what it
There
is.
you go.
Augmented reality. Yeah, that's it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it really seems like that's the sort of thing that they're using, where in their contact lenses or eyeglasses or whatever, they're able to see these digital objects that aren't really there, but they render onto the video. And so they're sort of using that in order to manipulate items or 3D items that don't actually exist. And yeah, absolutely. Like I really do think that's what they're using. And you're right, they have been caught red-handed, in my opinion, on a few different occasions where they're trying to manipulate 3D objects that not only are they not there, but they're not being rendered on screen either. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yep. All right. I'm gonna keep rolling.
And that's just by surface tension. And then you can drink it. So a lot of people ask about what do you do?
Did you notice how forced that swallow was? Like, I don't know. That was like totally, in my opinion, that was somebody pretending to swallow something.
Yeah, dude, exactly. That was, yeah, it's like boom, boom.
Right. Yeah, like very forced. Okay.
Right.
Do with the toothpaste after you brush your teeth.
Swallow that fluoride.
Two options. Swallow it, and it's sort of like mouthwash, but it tastes a little gross. Or you can just spit it out in a paper towel, and then you don't have to worry about it. Swallowing thing I wouldn't recommend at home.
What do they do with their trash off of the space station? Like, you just can spit it out into a paper towel and then you don't have to worry about it, but you kind of do have to worry about it. Anyway.
Yeah.
I'm only up here for 4 months, so it's not that bad.
Yeah, 4 months. Dude, my house gets dirty after like 2
One of the
days
most
if I don't take care of shit, you know? It's like,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, 4 months. Oh, yeah, don't worry. Just 4 months of just throwing these paper towels and all the other shit that we throw away. And don't worry, it's fine.
Yeah, of course. Right.
most pressing questions about living in space, of course, is the bathroom. So let's take a look at that little.
Yeah, that's the most pressing question about living in space is the bathroom. I mean, like, really, like, where do they come up with this? Like, my gosh, man.
Piece of work. Come on in. Here we are at the throne. This is awesome. You might see the little, you might have noticed the little moon on the outside.
Hey, wait, John, real quick, can you cut it?
What was that?
Did you notice that? Okay, because the cameraman, he easily could have just stayed with her the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And it did seem odd that the camera shifted over to the right now that I'm looking at it, where it seems like in case the shot was going on too long, okay, now they have to reshoot it this way, where there's cuts in it, because she wasn't in frame that whole time. I don't know if you noticed that or not, but it was, maybe 20 seconds ago where like the camera could have just stayed on her the whole time, but it chose to move over to the right, which seemed kind of unnecessary.
Well, and yeah, I do see what you're saying in terms of trying to splice the two scenes together if they were going to do a hard cut. But it seemed like they were trying to get that crescent moon into the shot, because you know how the old
Right.
the old outhouses had those crescent moons, so it's almost like they planned the shot to get that in there. But yeah,
I gotcha. Yeah.
that's what I would say. But okay.
Orbital outhouse right here. And of course, it serves for two functions. Number two, right here. I'll show you. But you see it's pretty small, so you have to have pretty good aim, and you be ready to make sure things get let go the right direction.
Give me a break. I mean, come on, really?
Dude, I
Like,
would be screwed, man. I would. There's no way.
it would be, yeah, it would be a mess in there. And like, come on, just because they're in space, they could have a more comfortable and aesthetically pleasing toilet. That's just it's like they made it in a certain way so that it looks like it belongs in space, right? I don't know.
Right. It's almost like it's another subliminal, like subconscious thing where a lot of people would be like, "Oh, forget me ever going to space. If that's how you got to take a shit in space, I'm not doing it." Like they would. It's one of those things where you just it prevents people from even wanting to go up. Be like, "Well, let them do it." Again, giving the authority to somebody else rather than yourself, because you don't want to deal with taking a shit in a tiny little tube like that.
Yeah, yeah, of
I don't know
course.
if I don't know if that came across right, but
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, that's one aspect to it for sure. I don't know. It just seems like they like certain things they build, or like it's been designed not so much for functionality or for practicality, but so that it looks like it belongs in space. Like, does that make sense?
right, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like, yeah, like the most modern look, or like the most confused. It's one of those like Rube Goldberg machines, where here's the most confusing machine you could ever have to take a dump. It's like who
Yeah.
in the right mind would do that, But yeah, no, I hear you.
Right. All right. Let me roll it on.
And it smells a little bit, so I'm closing it up.
I bet.
And that's, of course, for number 2. And this guy right here is for number 1. So they're sort of two slightly separate functions, but you can do essentially both by hanging on right here and doing number 1 and number 2. I might add it's color coded, so you really don't get it mixed up, which is nice. This is yellows for number 1. And also, there's a selection of paper.
Another thing I forgot to mention, but throughout this whole thing, you'll notice the sound of jet engines in the background. So it really seems to me like a lot of this was shot in like a Vomit Comet, because they were just not able to get rid of the background noise of the jet engines over, because it'd be very loud. Um,
I'm sure they would just say it's whatever the air pressure inside, like there's some sort of air system that's going on, it's running through the ISS, or so
oh,
I mean, they would probably say something like that.
of course they would, of course, but I would say no. It sounds to me like jet engines, but yeah, you could argue that all day. I mean, there's no way to prove it one way or another.
Right.
Um, but it's one thing where if they could have edited it out or used some sort of like noise gate or digital like track compression, if it was just air conditioning or air compression inside, it would be a lot easier to get rid of than jet engines.
Right. But the only
Yeah.
thing when you say because the only thing with the Vomit Comet part of it is that I just think it's going on too long, where I don't see how they could keep it going for that long. So I thought, isn't the longest that you could do one of those parabolic flights for, like, where you're in, no gravity, would be like 4 minutes or something like that?
I think it's less than that. I think it's
Or yeah, maybe.
like 45 seconds or a minute or so, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and see, that's what I was thinking, that maybe they've got some very clever way to edit shots together, because, like, of course, if you, let's say you record for 45 seconds and you get the person to freeze, then to get them to start the next 45-second shot, they'd have to be exactly in the same position that they were before, and that would be really difficult to do, especially in that sort of volatile environment on the Vomit Comet.
Right.
So either they've figured out that they've figured out some kind of a way to edit those two hard stops together, or, like I said, the whole thing could be CGI. It could be like they're hanging on ropes in a controlled environment, and you've got all these little objects that aren't really there. So, and it
Right.
could be a combination of things as well.
Well, it's like, Sandra Bullock in what was it? That was Gravity, right? The movie
Y-
she was in with
Right.
yeah, where I mean, because yeah, there were those long scenes where they show her going for minutes on end with, yeah, and it looked totally legit. So
Of
um
course.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So if they can do it in Hollywood, trust me, they can do it in NASA. Like I said, the biggest budget movie when it was made was Lord of the Rings. That was 3 movies, 300 million bucks. That's chump change to NASA. They make that in a week.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Or they have that to spend in a week, I should say.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I was asking about toilet paper. What do you do with toilet paper? What kind of toilet paper do you have? We have gloves just because sometimes it does get messy. We have some Russian wipes, which are a little bit coarse if you like the coarse type of toilet paper. We have some nice tissues, which are nice and soft if you like soft toilet paper. We have Huggies, just for any cleanup. We're all babies once, and this sort of helps. And then if things get really out of control, we have disinfectant wipes just to make sure we clean up here. Because, just like the water I showed you, the number one stuff can sort of go all over the place if you don't aim correctly. And did I mention both of these have a little bit of suction, so they should keep things going in the right direction. But like I said, sometimes things get a little out of control if you are out of control yourself flying around. So we have lots of protective stuff. And of course, you do have your privacy. There's a little door. So other people know that you're in there. Here's a pretty cool place. This is sort of like in your house where everybody meets in the morning. After you wash your face, brush your teeth, you want to find something for breakfast. And this is our kitchen. You might notice there's all sorts of foods here. It's like opening the refrigerator. You got all your different stuff that you want to have: drinks, meats, eggs, vegetables, cereals, bread, snacks. And that's a good place. That's where you find all the candy. Side dishes, and then some little power bars just in case. So we have all this type of food. Some of it is dehydrated, and so we have to hydrate it, fill it up with water. Some of it is all ready made, and then all we have to do is heat it up. So something like this, I'm pulling out barbecued beef brisket. Pretty yummy. Not only is this food made in the U.S., but we also have food here from Japan. We've got Russian food. As you can see, all these red containers are filled with food that's from Russia. And then we get some of our specialty stuff, some things that we like, some of our favorite stuff that your family can send up. In fact, I like fluffernutters, and so I got sent up some fluff so I could make my fluffernutter with peanut butter. So you have a lot of food up here, no problems. Now, I'm going to say where we are. So right now, we're in the Japanese laboratory. It's one laboratory out of many here on the International Space Station. It's actually on the left-hand side. If I was the International Space Station and I was flying through space like this, my left hand would be where the Japanese laboratory is. So now again, we're on the right-hand side, all the way on the right of the International Space Station. This is Columbus, the European module. It has science experiments all over. You could see it looks a little bit crowded. And here we do a lot of our medical experiments.
So she spent 10 minutes on the bathroom and 10 seconds on their science experiments. I mean, it really goes to show you where their priorities are.
Yeah, exactly. I'm talking about food. Here's the Russian side. Here's the pierogies for the it's like, she spends all that time with the food too, And so
Right.
yeah, but the science side, yeah, it's like, oh, blah blah blah. All right, let's move past this.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's funny to me. It really is, because like, what are they going to do? What is she going to do? It's not like she knows anything about those science experiments, because it's just a prop, right?
Yeah, and isn't it like, I don't know, is it just weird though that, because didn't she say that's where the Japanese section is? Okay, that's where they do their experiments. Like I don't know. It just seems like, okay, they could just sort of go into each other's space like that, and I mean, especially the United States and Russia. We're supposedly in like this major battle going on. Yet, oh, here they can do their experiments here. We're doing ours here. It's like so peaceful. It's like it just doesn't seem to fit the narrative of what they tell us. They play whichever side is going to fit the narrative. 1 second Russia's the enemy, next second, oh, they're our best friend. Where it's like, I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot of hypocrisy with a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely appears to me that the United States and Russia have been allies since World War II and before then.
Right.
But the whole Cold War thing was a ruse, in my opinion, in order to bolster the military spending on both sides. I mean, it really is very much like 1984, George Orwell's 1984, where, in order to justify huge increases in military spending, you have to have a big bad boogeyman enemy overseas, and
Right.
so it's like we're playing that role for Russia. Russia's playing that role for us. But at the end of the day, yeah, we're best buds, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. All right.
Here we are in the U.S. laboratory. Again, this is a laboratory with science experience on all of the walls here, all sorts of stuff that we do. And one of the things we also do is we exercise. We have some exercise equipment on board the space station. We need to do that because
Like, she's not going to tell us about one single science experiment, but she'll tell you all about the exercise equipment, all about their food, how they brush their teeth, how do they go to the bathroom, but literally not one single detail about the science experiments.
Yeah,
Not
it's like,
one.
oh, here's the thigh master. Here's what I'm working
Yeah,
on. You know,
of course.
I know it's nuts.
we lose bone density and muscle mass while we're up here, and that's a result of not having to fight against gravity. So, how we keep ourselves in shape are with a bike, a treadmill, and a weightlifting machine. This is the bike. You notice the clip pedals. So all you need to do is actually clip your feet in, and then you can start pedaling. You don't need a seat because you don't sit down. Actually, I haven't sat down for 6 months now, so you don't need any type of seat. Just make sure you're held in with your pedals. You probably see that the bike bounces around a little bit. As I move it, it's not steady and held to the wall firmly. And the reason for that is the space station is pretty big. You saw that there's also solar arrays on the space station. If we start putting any forces into the space station, it's going to make those solar arrays bounce around a little bit. So to prevent that, the machines bounce around a little bit, move around a little bit. And that way we don't put any forces onto the structure of the spacecraft out to the solar arrays.
Now, but wait a minute, though. Wouldn't those forces still be transferred to the space station? I mean, I can understand absorbing the shock and stuff, but it's still attached to the space station. So where are those forces going? They can't just be completely absorbed by this motion of the contraption, because that
Right.
contraption is
Right.
ultimately fixed to the space station. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong here, but it just seems like, it's like trying to pull yourself up by your boots, right? I mean, you can't do it,
Right.
just like you
Right.
can't move things around on the inside of the space station that are attached to the hull without that motion, or that without those forces being transferred to the space station.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Yeah. All right.
All right, a little farther on. Come on. I'm here with my two buddies in the airlock. Actually, these are two spacesuits that are ready, primed up to go outside, as we call it, to go do a spacewalk in case we have to do anything outside. Some of the things we do outside are just like inside repairs. We have a lot of.
They're ready to put those in the Tesla. Send it out in Elon Musk's Tesla. There, those are the brothers of the guy that Elon Musk put out.
Yeah, and just while we're on this frame here with the spacesuits, these are a huge problem for NASA, because these spacesuits, when they're out in space, they would be pressurized, and so you would definitely expect to see these expand, probably even explode. But let's say they've solved that problem of having this pressurized suit made of a few layers of different types of fabric. They would expand to the point where mobility within these extravehicular mobile units, they would expand to the point where you would not be able to move around. And this is demonstrable. There was a test done even by MythBusters, and they basically they had a vacuum chamber that was, I don't know, maybe 5 foot tall, 4 foot wide. And in the vacuum chamber, they had a glove that, like protruded into the vacuum chamber. And the guy from Mythbusters was basically saying it was difficult to, even wiggle his fingers around or move his arm because
Right.
you've got that pressure differential. It would be like trying to walk around in a suit that was like a tire on your car, right? Like, you wouldn't
Right.
be able to move around, at least not that easily. And yet, when you watch these spacewalk videos, it's more like they're underwater in a high pressure area as opposed to a vacuum area.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're doing all that intricate little, all the work on the outside of the space station where they're fixing this screw or doing this or tightening this up. It's like, yeah, how are they doing that? Like you said, because it would be so impossible to move, especially with your fingers moving tiny little things. It would be, yeah, I don't see how that would actually work.
Yeah, well, I would say it would be impossible, or at least it would be very, very strenuous. But I've never heard any astronaut ever once say how difficult it is to move around in those suits because, well, frankly, for the history of spacewalks, they've made it seem very easy. They've made it seem like it's not a big deal, although in reality, it definitely, definitely should be very difficult, and it should be a big deal. That's a
Right.
problem as far as I'm concerned for NASA.
Yeah, for sure.
Moving right along.
Electrical boxes and machinery and solar arrays, in fact, that I talked about earlier, that are outside, and sometimes they don't work quite right. Remember, space is really cold and really hot, and it's also the vacuum of space with no pressure, and so some of the equipment doesn't work well all the time. So we might have to go out and do a spacewalk. Right behind me is actually the hatch that you go out into.
And I just wanted to mention during this whole part of the scene, her necklace doesn't clank one single time because it's not playing a character in this scene. Whereas in previous scenes, it definitely was. Now it's just sort of there in the background and it's not really playing a role in this scene. So they didn't bother to put any sound effects in.
Space.
Right.
And right now we have it filled up with a couple other spacesuits because we've got 4 of them up here and some of our tools. But right behind here is the hatch in which you actually go right outside into the vacuum of space. The spacesuit is pretty big, as you can see. It's like being a football player. Part of the reason it's so big and bulky is because of this backside, this backpack. It's like going on a hike with a backpack, but the backpack and the suit weighs about 300 pounds. Luckily, in space, nothing really weighs anything, so you don't feel that it's so heavy. But we need to have such a big suit because that guy back there is essentially the heart of the spacecraft. I call this actually a spacecraft. It has all the oxygen for you. It has all the carbon dioxide removal system for you. It also has a heating and cooling system to make sure to regulate our body temperatures while we're outside. It also has a computer. So it tells you on a display here if there's anything that's going wrong with the suit, if we're running out of oxygen, if we have too much carbon dioxide, or any type of electrical problem. So it's a pretty awesome little spacecraft, and actually got to go out, use my little spacecraft a couple times, and it worked like a charm. Lucky that it works very nice. You might want to see what the helmet looks like. It's pretty cool too. We don't usually go out like this, so you usually can see when the helmet's open. So you can see what it looks like inside. Somebody's little head would be inside of here. So you can see, you can turn your head up.
No, really? Somebody's head goes in there? I mean, come on.
All the way around while you're inside of there, but the helmet stays still. So that's
The helmet stays still. Notice that.
See.
Remember what was it, the Gemini one, where the guy's turning his helmet back and forth?
Yeah.
Or I don't know, was that Gemini or what was Russia's first spacewalk where the cosmonaut is turning his head as if, and he's waving, and it's you could tell it's just stop motion, where it's like
Yeah.
turning it like it's nothing.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the mission, but I'm familiar with that, and yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah,
it really
yeah.
is.
I mean, and she made a point of saying, yeah, the helmet stays in one. It's like, well, how come it didn't for that guy? How come they didn't do it that way? Yeah, and that was the first spacewalk ever. You would think by now, if that was the first one, they'd be able to, where you can turn your head any which way you want, no big deal, But now it's like, okay, no, it's got to be locked in because, the whole thing's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess from an engineering standpoint, it would be a lot safer. You wouldn't have to seal off that moving part. But hey, NASA doesn't give a damn about safety at all, apparently, according to this video. But
Right, exactly. Well, yeah. I mean, and you're right. I mean, the first one, I think that the Russian cosmonaut, they screwed up by putting that out initially. Anyways, it's like, well, of course it's not going to work. He can't move his head, with the helmet. But yeah, I mean, the whole thing's just nuts.
yeah, he'd have to be like, I don't know, would have to be either controlled by some like control mechanism, or he'd have to be like pushing his face against the right side to turn right and
Right.
pushing his face against the left side to turn left. And then, yeah, you'd have to worry about that being sealed off from the very high vacuum of space. But yeah, they solved those problems in the 1960s, and we have yet to solve those problems in 2019, of course.
Yeah,
Makes
exactly.
makes perfect sense.
And it's usually pretty sunny out there, so we have to wear our sunglasses, and this is our sunglasses right here, which make you look pretty cool.
Comes Earth.
And you notice right off the bat that necklace is clinging again in this shot, and they use it to their advantage again in this. I guess this is what the cupola. Anyway.
It's like a glass bottom boat.
And you notice the thing just hit her right in the face. I'll back that up a hair. It hits her right in the face below her left eye, and she doesn't flinch, doesn't acknowledge it at all. And I'm sorry, but that would be something. I don't care how many hundreds of times that thing's hit you in the face. You're still going to flinch when it hits near your eye. Let me back that up so y'all can see that again.
It's like a glass bottom boat. This is the cupola. It sticks down below the space station. It's one of those places you find yourself hanging out in all the time because all you want to do is look back at our planet. I think some questions I had were about what do you do in your free time? And you can't help but want to just come to the cupola and look outside as much as you can. And a lot of folks...
I'm sorry, but lady, take that damn necklace off. I mean, it's hitting her in the eye. It's getting all in her mouth. And I'm sorry, but that's just absolutely ridiculous.
Well, even to have long hair. I mean, if you're in space, you would think, okay, that would be one of the requirements. Okay, listen, you got to sort of shave your head because it could be a danger to this experiment or that experiment or just anything, anything that could get caught in something. You would think, okay, let's eliminate that issue altogether. I mean, but like every woman astronaut, they always have that super long hair. It's like, okay, well, if you're going in space, I don't think they would want all these dangly things and your hair floating all over the place, I mean, it could be a potential risk. You would think that would just be common sense. All right, sorry, going
Yeah,
to space, you got to
no,
shave your head,
no, you're absolutely right. I mentioned that earlier as well. And, at least maybe, okay, so she don't have to shave her head, but you have to tie it back because it really, I mean, that goes for somebody that works in any restaurant. You got
Right.
to tie
Yeah,
your hair
exactly.
back. Oh, but on the ISS, no, it doesn't matter at all.
Right. Right. Oh, by the way, this part coming up right now, this is the part that my friend, when he sent me the video, he's like, dude, see, this is proof. He's like, yeah, this is proof right here. So this is it with the curvature of Earth right here.
Right. And, before we get into that part, then I would just say again, just because you see something on TV does not mean that it's real. And trust me and believe they have the ability to completely fake something like this. They could put something like this together in a Hollywood studio for a very small budget, relatively speaking, and you would not be able to tell the difference.
Right.
Yep.
And
They
by the way,
absolutely.
just to my friend Tony, I'm not trying to throw you under the bus or anything, dude. I'm just like, just throwing that out there. So sorry if I'm like, I don't want him to think I'm making him look bad because he's so he'll probably end up watching this. So sorry, dude.
Yeah. Well, no, we're not picking on anybody. I'm just saying that they can fake it. The video special effects have come such a long way to where like they could totally fake this very easily, and you'd never know the difference. You really wouldn't.
Right.
Yep.
With myself about where we're flying over the Earth. Try to come in here and just guess. After being here for a little while, you can sort of figure it out. You can tell different cloud types over different continents. You can tell different soil types over different continents. So let's see.
You can tell different soil types over different continents. Like, I don't know. Um, we
That's like
during the go ahead.
I was gonna say that's like the chemical composition thing of like knowing something that that's that far away. Oh, we could tell just by looking at it. It's like no, you can't.
Right. And like, I'm sorry, but you can't see the stars even during the day. And so you certainly, you can't see the ISS during the day. And so how in the hell could the ISS see the ground during the day? I mean, to me, that doesn't make any sense, but they have to say it because, those old pictures from the 1970s of the Earth from space, you can see the continents much more clearly than that. That's very washed out and like a bluish gray for the land masses there, and you can differentiate in this CGI image. But it's like they had to. But according to the blue marble image from the 1970s or whatever, the continents should be way brighter than that. You'd think.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And then, of course, there's a lot of ocean. So usually we're over the ocean at first glance. I will tell you in just a moment where we are. Well, there we go. Oh, right now we are right over Africa. It's a little bit cloudy, as you can tell. So we're right over the continent of Africa. Hey, what's that? I think that's a Soyuz spacecraft. That's the spacecraft that's taken us home to planet Earth today. Oh my gosh. We might have to go take a look at that. That's pretty cool. It's a little bit smaller than the rest of the spacecraft, the space station. So you'll see if we go there, it'll be a little bit more cramped. But we're going, you can look all the way back to the back of the spacecraft, which is where the Russian segment is. And then you could look all the way forward to the front of the spacecraft, where the Japanese laboratory, the European laboratory, and the American laboratory.
And I would just say real quick that this looks very authentic, very realistic. But then again, so did King Kong in the Peter Jackson film King Kong. So that doesn't mean that there really is a 500-foot gorilla running around in New York or whatever.
Are you
I mean,
sure?
I'm pretty sure.
And then back to the solar arrays where we started this morning when we were looking out the Japanese window.
Oh, and this is the part where Don Pettit is infamous for the guys asking him like questions, and he's like, I believe so. How did these shutters open? Because this thing has shutters on it. And he's like, oh, it's just a mechanism on the inside. And he's like, oh, so how do you seal that off from space? He's like, oh, a regular O-ring. I'm like, what? So you're keeping out this just insanely high vacuum or whatever,
Right.
insanely high pressure differential, and you're sealing that off with a little O-ring. And so he's like, well, what happens if you have a leak? Well, then you have a leak, and I'm sure there's a
Right.
process for that, but I don't know off the top of my head. Like you'd think that he of anyone would know exactly what to do in case of a leak.
Yeah. Exactly. You'd go through every single safety measure there possibly is. And like and I remember that. Yeah, he had like no clue. It's just like whatever.
Yeah. Oh
On
my
a
God.
side note, doesn't he remind you a lot of George McFly from Back to the Future? I was almost going to make a video of the comparison between him and George McFly. Because, I mean, man, they've got a lot of similarities.
Yeah, I guess personality traits. Yeah, I definitely see it. He always reminded me, and this, I guess I'm probably showing my age a little, but he always reminded me of Glass Joe from the original Mike Tyson's Punch Out on Nintendo Entertainment System.
Yeah. Oh my God. I still remember the code to get to Tyson. 007-373-5963.
Oh, I never knew that one, but I do remember the code for Contra. It was up, up, down, down, left, right, B, A, B, A,
BABA
start.
star. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, we're dorks.
Yeah. Yeah. We are.
So other questions that were here are, what would you recommend as a job, if so, and to what type of person would want to be an astronaut? I think
A liar.
people who like to explore, of course, people who like math and science. That's what this is all about.
Is it okay? Wait, stop that, because yeah, people that like math and science. So it's like, it's basically saying right there, yeah. So all, like, we're just a bunch of idiots. All of us that don't believe in this. We just don't like math and science.
Yeah.
That's what she's basically saying right there. In a lot of ways.
Yeah. People who like math and science, I don't want to be an astronaut.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
People in the office who are doctors, teachers, veterinarians, engineers, pilots. So all sorts of people become astronauts. And I think if you see, it's just sort of cool. So I think people who like to do a little adventure and like to do cool stuff probably usually become astronauts. Hey, one thing I didn't show you, or I talked about but I didn't show you, was the exercise. Another piece of exercise advice, which is the advanced resistive exercise, and that's what this is right here. This is ARED, and you could probably see this bar. Let me just do a little bit of maneuvering here. Stand by. You have to set it up just like at any other gym. Hold on. Show you how this works. So you can see you can change your attitude just by going from one module to the next, going up from the cupola down here. This is what we call the ARED. And with this, you can lift weights based on vacuum in these cylinders, just like you do at home at a gym. For example, if I wanted to do a squat, I could do it like this. I should need some weight on this.
Yeah, that's working nicely. I can tell. That's yeah, you've used that a bunch of times. All right.
I'm not lifting with anything, so it's too easy. One of the cool things you could do things that you can't do at home. For example, single leg squat.
Yeah.
It only costs $50 million for that contraption.
Oh, I'm sure.
You could buy it. 3 easy payments of $15 million.
Yeah, of course. But what a clunk of junk. Like, I don't know. It seems very ineffective, and it's just for show. I mean, that's just absurd.
Yeah.
All right.
With just one leg, because the other leg, he won't fall over. So also,
it's like she's trying to figure out how to use the thing for the first time.
Yeah, pretend that this is a workout contraption. She's just doing whatever.
Yeah, but look at all the intricate moving parts and stuff. I mean, you'd think that they could come up with some. I mean, Bowflex could probably do something similar without all the multi-million dollars worth of equipment, right? Just like resistance bows.
Yeah, well, exactly. Like what we were saying before, it's like they create the most complex thing, like one of those Rube Goldberg machines where, in the beginning of Pee Wee Herman, of Pee Wee's Big Adventure, where he's got that whole thing, where it goes through all these different, the things in order to make a bowl of cereal or make his fried eggs, where
right.
It's like the marble falls on this and then that goes to that and all this. It's like that's what they're doing with all these machines. And like you said, yeah, you get just anyone that knows a little bit about any sort of engineering, they would not make it this complex. It doesn't seem, especially with the amount of money they have.
Right, absolutely. And again, something like Bowflex, it doesn't work on weights, it works on like the resistance of the material or whatever, would be just way cheaper, way more cost effective, or like weight effective, you know, because it costs, according to them, it costs just exorbitant amounts of money to send every single pound up there. And so you'd think that they would minimize on excess, you know, junk, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
All right.
To do bench press, we have a bench that we could add on here, so you can work on your
It's just
beach muscles.
ridiculous.
It reminds me of like one of those old like you know, couches that have the bed inside of it. You
Mhm.
know, like from like the 1980s. You know, like that's the technology they're using for this. You know.
Oh my goodness.
Hey, Aki, what are you doing down there? This is one of the cool things about space too. It sort of looks like there's a big old hole here, but you don't even think twice about it. You could just jump over the hole, or if you want, you can go jump into the hole. I'm coming down. Woo!
So, like, my question is, she just said she's coming down. Don't you think he should like move out of the way? Like, why is he standing exactly where she's going to go? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, that's how they roll.
Like,
They like to be risky. You know.
right. So she says, "I'm coming down," right, to let everybody know she's coming down. So what was the point in that? If they're not going to move out of the way, she should have just done it.
Right.
I don't know. It's just so stupid.
Then he can come right back up again, like Superman. Woo! We're lucky we have a really cool big space station that you can fly around in. That's actually called the PMM. You might have saw it out the window. It's a big silver canister. What's really great about that is it's essentially our closet in our pantry or whatever you want to call it. We have extra food down there. We have extra clothes. We actually throw the trash out down there. So it's nice and organized, and we have all of our stuff that we need while we're working in all these other modules all stowed in this location down here. And it's a lot of fun to play in. So we're going into the Russian segment. Be ready. You don't need a passport either.
Okay. Now, when I watched this last night, something that struck me about this is she goes into the Russian segment, and it's just so staged. Like they're just kind of sitting around, like playing cards or something, and like talking in Russian. And I don't know, just something about it seemed very staged to me. And I can't exactly put my finger on it, but I don't know. So just maybe keep that in mind.
It goes a lot farther back than this. We'll go take a trip and say hello to the boys down there in just a minute. Well, let's do that first, actually, and then we'll go down to the Soyuz at the very end. This is Yevgeny.
And you can really hear those jet engines from this portion of it.
Doing a little tour. This is the FGB, and what's cool about this module, it is actually the very first piece of the space station that came up in 1998. The space station has been around for about now, manned for 12 years, but it's been up in space for about 14 years. And this was the very first. It is like the Russians' PMM. It has a lot of storage, as you can see. Можно? Снимаем. Чуть-чуть. So here we are in the heart of the space station, really. This is the service module, central post. In case we had any problems, I know a couple of the questions were about what type of things do you have to worry about. And some of the things we have to worry about in space are fire. If if we had a fire, if we had a depressurization, like we were hit by a micrometeorite and it made a hole, or if we had some type of toxic atmosphere. We use ammonia for our radiator, so there is a possibility that ammonia could come into the vehicle, and then it would be bad for all of us. If we have any of those problems, we come right here, which we call the central post. It is the main heart of the space station. It was also the first computers that came up here that ran the space station. And so behind this wall right here are these main computers. So we gather here as a group.
Yeah, and you know how those 20-year-old computers just work fantastically today with our new operating systems and software and everything, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
Of 3 or 6, and then figure out how we're going to either fight the fire, patch the hole, or solve the toxic spill. And what's cool about this module, of course, it's the central post. It also has great windows right down toward Earth. It has controls to fly in visiting spacecraft if they need some assistance right here. It has Russian computers as well as American computers to help us control anything we need to on the space station. It's a couple of our crewmates back there, Oleg Novinsky on the right and Yuri Malenchenko on the left. And there's also a second bathroom here, which is really cool because 6 of us going to one bathroom is really tough. And so there's one bathroom here and one bathroom on the other side where I showed you. And you can probably see on the wall behind Oleg and Yuri some of the heroes of the space program. Korolev, Sergei Korolev, who was a
Hey John, did you see all those cameras on the on the side there? Like back up a few seconds. It looked like I just wonder, are all those fisheye lenses?
I'm sure. But like this just seems so staged because she shows up, they're sitting around, and then as soon as she shows up, there he goes playing with his water packet, making coffee. I don't know. It just seemed so staged, and
it
doesn't prove anything, but it's just sort of, it seems fishy to me. I don't know.
Right.
So this reminds us of our roots. Yuri, what are you doing? Что делать? Making coffee. Oh. Black coffee. Yeah. Looks good. Okay. Спасибо. We're going to check out our Soyuz real quick. Make sure it's ready to go.
And like honestly, between now and the end of the video, I don't remember there being anything that really caught my attention. So was there anything that you wanted to like going towards the end of this video that you remember that you wanted to go over? Or
no, the main thing was when they were looking out through, looking out at Earth. I mean, that was around the 14-minute mark. So, I mean, there's nothing else special about the rest of it. So, it's just, I don't know, man. The whole thing's just weird. I don't even know how to phrase it exactly, but it's just, I don't know. Like, what's your thoughts? I mean, what do you think? Do you think these people are just like all out actors? Or do you think like they're like MK Ultra or something like that, where like they really believe that they're doing this? I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know what to think still because it's all like speculative, so it's just, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know what to make out of any of it.
I think that they're liars. And this is what I've come to conclude, because we know that the Earth is not a spinning ball, so they have to be lying. And I believe that they are recruiting people from within these, assorted secret societies. Thousands of people apply to become an astronaut every year, and only just a very small handful of people are awarded the position. And so and I've actually been talking with a guy who was a 32nd degree Freemason, and he got out of it because it was actually because of flat Earth. And what I believe is that they are screening for psychopathy, for psychopaths, and they're promoting them. And a psychopath, this is just my theory,
Mm.
a psychopath has no empathy, no sort of conscience. They can lie to your face and not even think twice about it. But more importantly, they can blend in very well. So one of their best or like most effective traits is that you'd never be able to pick them out of a crowd, even if you got to know them very well. And so whether or not they're psychopaths is sort of besides the point. But if they are promoting people from within the ranks of these secret societies, or these, these different secret society groups, it would be very easy to find people that they know are loyal, that they know are never going to talk about it. Although, maybe there is some element of mind control involved. Maybe they are tricking these people, but no, it makes a lot more sense to me that the astronauts are just lying. Now,
Yeah.
that isn't to say that everyone who's ever worked for NASA is lying. Like a lot of people say, well, my uncle designed, satellites or whatever when, for 20 years, you're calling my uncle a liar? No, I'm not. I believe that he did exactly what he said. But the point is I don't believe that the satellite that he designed is actually going up into space.
Right. Exactly. See, the
Yeah.
thing with, but if they're screening for, like, let's say psychopaths, I don't know, because to me, a psychopath would be much more likely to turn, like, to basically turn on you at any point. So that's where I
Would
feel.
a psychopath lie about the flat Earth to get drug money from people on YouTube and pretend to be a Christian? That's something a psychopath would do, huh, Morgile?
John, your voice